I'm Nicole Lappin, the only financial expert you don't need a dictionary to understand. It's time for some money rehab. Being a pro athlete has always seemed so glamorous, but the illusion recently has been shattered by athletes like Simone Biles speaking up about the mental toll. On a recent episode of her M&N pod Moneymaker, Nely Galan interviewed pro skateboarder Paul Rodriguez about the career path of an athlete. But beyond that, he talks about how to diversify your money-making opportunities and streams of income, which is especially important in industries like sports where longevity is, well, often shorter than most would like. So whether you're athletic or you're hand-eye challenged like me, I wanted to share this episode because it is packed with money gems. Here's that conversation.
Welcome to Moneymaker, the podcast that gives you the tools to enrich your life in every sense of the word. I'm your host, Nely Galan. Let's get started. I'm very excited to speak to someone who I'm happy to say I've known since he's 8 years old.
Yeah.
We're aging ourselves. The goated, the legendary skateboarder, Paul Rodriguez, who happens to be my stepson and is the brother of my son. So we've known each other for many years. And I'm the only person I think that used to call you. I still call you, but not in public, Munchkin.
It's all good. I passed that age where like you feel embarrassed by it. Now I'm older and it's endearing and I love it now.
I know you love what it is. So I have to say it's very beautiful that I went on the site of Nike where you're one of how many athletes that's had 10 shoes? I think it's only like 5, right?
No, I think maybe like 8. Maybe
wow,
I could be wrong.
8 athletes in history, but that's very few.
I'm the only one under 6 feet tall. That's what I'm most proud of.
I'm very proud of that too. And I read what they wrote about you, and I thought, how beautiful. And I don't even, knowing you haven't even read it. So I thought I'd read it to you. It says, "It takes more than talent to turn opportunity into legacy." Making an immediate impression in his early teenage years, Paul Rodriguez has stacked video parts, trophies, and milestones at a staggering clip. Wow. Through his 10 signature shoes with Nike SB, P-Rod always is finding innovative ways to balance tech and function. He continues to drive his career forward by remaining modest, yet fiercely independent.
Wow.
I thought that was a very beautiful,
I've
truthful,
never heard that. Wow.
Way of describing you. You are a very modest person.
Thank you.
And very introverted.
I'm super shy.
Yeah. And yet you're very successful, but in a quiet, very unassuming way, which I think is quite beautiful. And I have to say, so let's talk about when you were 8 years old. I think it's time to reminisce.
Yeah, I remember the first night I met you perfectly.
You do?
I remember it perfectly.
What was I wearing? How do you remember?
You were wearing a polka dot dress, black with white polka dots.
No.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I was at the time dating your dad.
Yep.
And I remember that you were so old for your age that you used to give me advice like you were my therapist.
I remember those days. Yeah.
And I remember you saying, "No, my dad's never going to change. You better accept it." You were like my little therapist.
Yeah.
And you and I would go to the movies a lot.
For sure.
Right? Mm-hmm. We hung out a lot together. Mm-hmm. And I even remember with your first skateboard. I think I'm one of the people that bought you your first skateboard.
Actually, you did.
Talk about going into an emerging field, an emerging sport, an emerging business. Who knew? You just loved it.
There's something to be said about just following that instinct.
Timing, right? And I don't know why you connected with that skateboard and then you took off. But then a few years later, you were wanting to leave high school to go pro. And I remember being very upset about that. Maybe because I think I had finished high school 2 years early. I had left school as well. I didn't get to go back to school till many years later when I finally got a master's and a doctorate. And I felt like, and it's funny because you and I talk about this now, I felt like I had missed some years in my life emotionally. That later on, it was very hard to catch up and I didn't want that for you.
I can feel that. I do feel that, but not about school.
Right, because you didn't like school.
No, I hated school.
But it's funny because you're a very learned person and you love to learn.
I do love to learn.
But you just
I
didn't like
love
to learn that way.
I just love to learn what I want to learn.
Well, and you were very lucky because let's talk about that moment you started skating and you really found your thing.
Yeah.
And so is it like love at first sight?
Yes. So going back to when I first met you, that first night, I had just come home from watching the Bruce Lee story called Dragon. And George, we remember George, he took me to go see it with my cousins. And when I got home, that's when I first met you. And I was so excited about having just watched that movie because I was super into karate at that time. Bruce Lee is still one of my biggest heroes of life. And so my personality, as far back as I can remember, was any hobby I had in my mind, that was my calling. So in my mind, I'm doing karate. I want to be a great martial artist. I wanted to do action films like Bruce Lee and do that. And then next phase came, I found a guitar. Oh my God, I want to play guitar. I want to be, Jimi Hendrix, he's my favorite. I want to be one of the greatest guitar players ever, have an amazing band and be great at that. And then after guitar, a skateboard came into my life. Oh my God, same mentality. This is awesome. I love this. Who are the best people? Eric Costin, Andrew Reynolds, Tom Penny, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yes, I want to do this. Matter of fact, I don't know if you remember, I remember when you were pregnant with this guy right here. I tried to convince you to name him Tom after my favorite skater, Tom Penny. I was like, please just name him Tom. Name him Tom. That's the best name ever. You were like, no, absolutely not. I was like, please name him Tom. I wanted him to be named Tom. So, hey, Tom.
So you're kind of a hyper focuser, is what you're telling me.
I guess, yeah.
That you don't like what you don't like, and then when you you go
all
deep.
the way.
You go deep.
Which I've learned to be a problem after that. I've had problems in life after that with that mentality. But for whatever reason, nothing else came and took my attention. Like it was martial arts and guitar, then skateboarding. But for whatever reason, nothing else came and took my attention off of skateboarding. And it just
skateboarding did it for you.
Scratched my itch, whatever it was, yeah.
And I remember that everything was happening so fast because it went from being like a non-sport sport to all of a sudden you were getting called to be on teams and you were getting asked to do skateboards for people. And like it all became very big, very fast. It seemed that way. Like it kind of snowballed, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And very quickly, you had to make a lot of very big grown-up decisions, like leaving school.
Sure, yeah.
Talk about a little bit about that. How did that come about? Like, why did you have to leave school? Now that we've had years, so we can have therapy now.
Yeah, I love it. Why did I have to leave school? I didn't have to, but I had to. In my heart, in my soul, I had to. I just remember, like, telling my mom for at least 2 years, Mom, like once I got my first little taste of sponsorship, which was not really much, like this skate shop told me they would sponsor me, and what that meant was we'll give you 10% discount on whatever you want to buy in the store. But in my mind, that was like, oh, that means I'm going somewhere. That's the first drop of blood in the water, and I'm a shark, and this is going somewhere. That's a sign. Keep going. And so I remember telling my mom, like, please, can I get home studies? I promise I'll do my work. I wasn't going to do the work. I was like, I promise I'll do my work. But think about it this way, Mom. If I can skate more hours a day and I will get better faster, then I'll become pro, and then I can take care of all the bills, take care of all the family. And like I was just trying to figure out any way any way I can like convince it and make it a compelling story. But also that was true. You do the math. Like, instead of going to school for 6 hours, if I have those extra 6 hours a day to skateboard, I'm obviously going to get that much better every day. And all my friends and all the other kids who have the same dream as me, they have to go to school and they're in school. So they skate less hours than me.
So you were going to beat everybody.
In my mind, I was going to skate them, outwork them, and it was just a natural progression. Of course I'm going to get better because I'm spending more time doing it.
Well, let me ask you something. A lot of people decide I want to be a basketball player. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. So there has to be also like an innate natural ability, don't you think, or not?
I think what was natural for me is just the enthusiasm for it. Like like I didn't look at it as like you have to have work ethic, you got to be disciplined. That was like I didn't even need to be
But how
told
about
to do
athletic
this.
ability?
Sure, I definitely have a certain athleticism, but like it's not like I'm like 7 feet tall. I mean, even right now to this day, I'm 5'7". You know, it's not like I had any obvious like physical thing that trait that made me like boom. Like if I wanted to be a football player or whatever, you got this guy's built like a house. You know, this guy's super tall. He's gonna be basketball, whatever. Like there was no obvious trait. Sure, I was coordinated and I was athletic, but there's a lot of people like that. And I know a lot of people like that who never took that to the next level. So, sure, I was given some gifts, and I think everyone's given a gift, whatever their gift is. But if you don't have a passion for whatever that gift is, you're not going to turn that gift into a gift.
That's true.
I found something like I couldn't, at the time when I was that young, you know, everything's the biggest deal. I couldn't live without it. I had to do this all the time. Could not do it. So it wasn't like work ethic or discipline, or it was just like I have to. It was
So it's like
a yearning.
something you would do for free just because you loved it.
I did, yeah, absolutely.
But success came really quick,
Yeah,
and you started making money quick.
yeah.
And so let's talk about being a kid.
At least what I thought was money.
Yeah,
at the
well,
time.
for you,
the
for
time,
that
right?
at that moment was
Yeah.
money. And I mean, at what age didn't Nike come in pretty early in the game? Like you were
Yeah, well,
16 or something, right?
Not that
17?
early. I signed to Nike when I was 19, but I turned pro at 17, and I started when I was 12. So between 12 to 19, that's only 7 years. That's pretty quick. And you just talked about it takes 10 years to become great at anything.
That's right.
And so like, thank God I was able to have home studies. Those extra 6 hours a day of skating made me reach what most people would have accomplished in 10 years in 7, because I was able to cram those extra hours that amounted to the same time that they would have done in 10, but I did it in 7, you know?
It's all, but also the sport itself was kind of growing at the same time you were growing. You were like
It was,
right
yeah.
in. I mean, at that time, Tony Hawk was like the only one that we'd hear about.
He pretty much still is the only household name. Like, I'm relatively well known, but like Tony Hawk is still the only real household name as far as skateboarders go.
But then all of a sudden, when you got into it, it became a whole other thing, right? And so, how did you deal with? Because you're very even keeled, and even then, you're a very old soul in a way.
Thank you.
So, I remember you being 16 and 17 and coming to talk to me and saying, "What do I do about this money?" And like, what do I do about the accounting?
Yeah.
And I remember we talked a lot about it, and I just said, don't go crazy because these, as we know, these things have a beginning, middle, and end.
100%.
And we talked a lot about how to manage your money.
Sure.
So how did you have that understanding that that was something you were going to have to deal with? When you're very young, when you're like a teenager, you want that flashy life. You are so not like that now.
Yeah.
I mean, you have your toys and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
But you
Yeah,
are
I'm
very,
not that-
you're
yeah.
pretty conservative.
Yeah, sure. When you're younger, you definitely want the glitz and the glam and that. And don't get me wrong, I still want a certain level of opulence, but I don't need like the over-the-top ridiculousness.
So from that point, when you start getting now agents and managers and whatever and all of that, I mean, I know a lot of athletes that have lost everything and have you. One thing I've always thought about you, Paul, is that you've always attracted good people to you. Do you think that that's your intuition? Do you think that's just been, I don't know.
I think so. And me personally, I believe in God. And I always have believed in God. And I don't necessarily subscribe to any certain religion, but I always believe in God, always stay prayed up. And I just look at it as like, Kobe said this line one time, a long time ago. He said, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And I just felt like I was just in alignment with what felt right to me. I would stay with my prayers, stay working hard, and I can't take any credit for that. Yes, the right people came to me. I was born in Southern California, the home of skateboarding. I was born right in the epicenter of it at the specific time when it was starting to blow up. I was young, and I, at the time, was considered a prodigy, and it just, all those factors, there's so many of those factors that I am not in control of, but it just so I can't say that I attracted it to me, but I just felt like I was moving in alignment with what my soul was yearning for, and it just came.
And so, some people say sometimes people get anointed or things happen to them in the right place at the right time and all that. But that doesn't mean that the rest of life is easy,
No,
right?
no, no, not at all.
And it wasn't easy because you really worked for it and you worked really hard.
Yeah, it's very
But
difficult.
but
It's
then
just-
there's a whole other side of life, which, and you and I've talked about it a lot and we love it, which is the money side of life. And the money side
Yeah.
of life, we know, because we've talked about this a lot, isn't just you. Yeah, you've had this very successful career, but an athlete's life, we know, has a beginning, middle, and end. And we've talked about a lot how you had to really be very cognizant of that.
Sure.
Because if not, then you wake up like so many people the
Sure.
day after that it's over, and
Yeah.
you go, "What happened to
Yeah.
all that money?"
Yeah.
And we've seen that happen.
100%.
You and I have both known many celebrities and many people, and many of them have ended up with no money when they've had so much money. So, when did you start, or did it come to you, or did you start? I know you always had a simpatico with investment and money. You'd always come over and see me and go, "No, well, you're buying buildings, and what are you doing?"
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so you had an interest in it, and I know
Always.
that you also have always been self-taught in that you've gone online and gone and heard Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yeah.
and podcasts and Tony Robbins, and you've had the privilege of hanging out with Kobe and other. So from all of that stuff, what were you gathering? If you try to remember, what were you gathering
Sure.
your other part of life?
So back then, I was the only child. Well, I had my half sister, but I wasn't really living there. I didn't have a big brother or in the house. Like I didn't live with my dad. I would see him when I had time to see him, but so I was very much a loner, very much, I could be social, but I was shy, as we talked about. And so I would be watching these Bruce Lee movies, and I would make in my mind, Bruce Lee's my big brother. So I'm just gonna follow him and do what he does. And then Muhammad Ali, I love him. He's my big brother. I'm just gonna emulate him. And then as I got a little older, I got into music, got into hip hop. Jay-Z, oh, he's my big brother. I love Jay-Z. And I just made all these my heroes, my imaginary big brothers, and I just tried to do what I thought they would do.
Right.
And the more I learned about Jay-Z, about how he owned everything he did, he full ownership, and controls every move he makes. He's his own boss. And I was like, whoa, what if I can do what he did in that world, but what if I can do it in my little world here? What if I can be my own boss? What if I can own a brand? What if I can, have money that comes in while I sleep? What if I can do all these things so that no matter what, I can always skate?
You had Jay-Z just as an example. Talk about how you manifested exactly that ownership in your own life.
Sure. So early on, even before I had my first skate sponsor, my uncle Dave, he used to take me around to skate contests, and he would just do it off his own dime and just drive me 2 hours away. It was like little league of skateboarding. He would just take me, buy hotel rooms, take me to skate contests and everything. And at one point, I was like, I want to start my own skateboard brand. How would that be? So cool. And he invested, at the time, I thought it was major money. He probably invested $2-3 grand. We got a couple skateboards printed up, and he would drive me around to different skate shops, and I would ask, hi, I just started a skateboard brand. Do you guys want to buy it? Couple of them thought it was cute and said, you know what, how about this? We'll put you on consignment. This is how I learned what consignment was. We're like, how about this? When we sell the board, we'll give you the payment for what the board costs. And we'll do that. And so I would leave 1 or 2 boards, and they would be nice. They'd be cute. A couple of them sold. So early on, I wanted to have my own brand. I just thought it was cool. I could design my own graphics and, make it look the way I want it to be. And then eventually a real actual board brand came, asked me to ride for them, be sponsored. I had to tell Uncle Dave, hey, Uncle Dave, sorry, I got actually sponsored. I'm going to ride with it. I remember him being like, I just invested this. You're going to leave this, leave me with all these boards? I was like, sorry, I just got to go with this. That was my first hard conversation.
Business disappointment to let somebody down.
Exactly. So I don't know, for whatever reason, That was always in my mind. Like even before skating, I always liked doing lemonade stands. I like
You had
the
an
idea
entrepreneurial.
I guess so. I just
You
like
didn't know how to call it that, but that's what it was.
I like the idea of just having cash. That's that simple. I just knew from a little kid age I wanted to be rich, plain and simple. No matter how, I just wanted to be rich and live the life I wanted.
Hold on. Moneymaker will be right back.
Me again. If you are loving this conversation, and I know you are, don't forget to subscribe to Moneymaker. The link is right there in the episode description.
Let's get back to the show. So you start there with the primitive products. I mean, I guess that was pre-primitive.
That was very
early.
Primitive, yeah. It was like 2008 when primitive.
So you went from basically sort of like some licensed stuff. How did primitive come about? Which is your brand and your company.
Primitive came about after I signed to Nike. My friend Andy, who was one of the founders of Primitive, he was the manager of the local skate shop that I was sponsored by. And when I signed to Nike, he came to me and was like, hey, man, like I got all these years of retail experience. I know the shoe market. Now that you're signed with Nike, if we partnered up, we can open up a really cool sneaker store. I'm telling you, it can do good. And I was 19 at the time, and I was like, I don't know. At this time, I'm thinking.
And you were allowed to do that even though you had Nike?
Yeah. And I was thinking, at this time, before I actually gave into the idea, I was thinking, I didn't understand what passive income was yet. I was thinking earned income was just the way to go. And I was like, well, in my mind, I was making a lot of money. And after a few years went by, I started learning a little more. By the time I'm 22, he had still been on me about this idea. He was like, hey, man, I'm telling you, we can do this. Talk to Nike. We can open up a sneaker shop, get the coolest Nike shoes in there. Boom, boom. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, okay, yeah. I start realizing, like, you know what? I thought 30 was like the end of my career, and I was 22. I'm like, 8 years from now, it'd be good to start getting something going. So by the time I had to retire, in my mind at 30, I had to retire, and I should have something like ready to go because I don't ever want to get a job. I don't want to have to ever do what I don't want to do. So I said, okay, let's do it. And so we talked to Nike. They said, like, give us a business plan. Show us that you're serious. Okay, what's a business plan? And so we found an accountant who is now actually the CEO of Primitive to this day. We found an accountant. He showed us how to make a business plan. He helped us with the business plan. And we presented it to Nike. And they were like,
okay,
wow, this is cool. And they were just like, yeah, okay, you're
but you
serious.
know that even that story is like a 1 in a million, because the chances of you meeting someone and then even finding an accountant and that it all works out is almost miraculous, because most entrepreneurs have nightmare stories of their first partnership. During the whole primitive thing, you also decided to start getting involved with or investing in a lot of other things. So how did that come about? Is it that when you're an athlete, people come to you and there are there a lot of things you turn down? Did you have an instinct for, like, I think that's a great business? Because you've had pretty great luck in the things you've chosen.
I have. I would call it naive. I was naive in a lot of ways. I was also still young enough and early in my career where, like, if I took risks that didn't pan out, I still had time to recover. I didn't know that at the time. Now looking back, I know that. But like the first after Primitive, first other real thing I tried to start this wallet company with 3 friends of mine.
I love those wallets.
Marquisa wallets. So yeah, myself, my friend Jason, my friend Nigel. We tried. We didn't invest. Actually, I did. Now that I think about it, it was a lot of money. I probably invested like maybe $90,000 in it. And we tried to get it going, and we tried, but long story short, it didn't work. It failed. I lost that money. But I look at that as like I could have spent that money trying to go to an Ivy League college and learn about business, but I guess I spent that money and I still learned about business in another way. So I look at that as like, that was my college. Chalk it up to that. You know, I don't have any student loan debt, anything at least, so that was cool. It's just one and done. So that failed, but I don't know. It didn't scare me because I still was young and I still really believed in myself and my skate career, that I was still going up, going strong, and that it's okay.
So you had a meat and potatoes business,
exactly,
which for me was TV, and then
exactly.
instead of you investing in real estate, even though you did invest in some real estate, you decided to invest entrepreneurially.
Sure,
in
because
assets that would make you money while you slept.
that's all I understood, because I only saw my favorite pro skaters started companies. They were the ones who sponsored me. Oh, you started a company? Oh, in my mind, oh, you're rich? Oh. So in my mind, I thought that's how you get rich. There's only ways to start brands. But that's a lot of work. I wouldn't even call that's not passive income, because you have to work to make that thing work.
Right.
And but in my mind, I thought like, oh yeah, make a brand. It's easy. You can do it. Anybody can do it. And I found out, no, you can't. Even if you have buzz and you have like a good following, if you don't understand how to make infrastructure work and like, margins and like the numbers, the tedious stuff. Yeah, if you don't know how to make that work, then you're gonna fail. So I tried that, and then the one that really sparked me up was in about 2000. What was it? 9 or 10. My friend who I want to get on this podcast, Mikey Taylor, the real estate guy, he calls me up. He says, "Hey, I just went on this trip with this guy, Josh. I think you might have met him." And I'd met Josh a couple years before. He was doing these videos for schools, editing and filming them. And it was about like athletes who don't do drugs, and you're trying to inspire the kids to like stay clean and whatnot. And I had met him, but somehow Josh was also a surf filmmaker. My friend Mikey, pro skater also, but loved surfing. He ended up on a surf trip, and these guys met and they clicked and they started talking, and like they got to talking like, "Oh, you know Paul? I know Paul. Oh, Paul's my friend. Oh, okay, cool." And that trip, they were talking like entrepreneurial, like we should start a brand. Of course, that's how we think coming from our industry. Got to start a brand. Start a brand. That's the way to make money. They're like, "What do you want? Should we do backpack company?" No, there's already a lot of backpack companies in our industry. Like, what else do they? Sunglass company? We've got tons of sunglass companies in our company. And so the way they told me the story is they were in a hotel room. They were sharing the hotel room, and they were going back, throwing out, "What about this kind of company? Nah, what about this kind of company? Nah, it's too many, too much competition." And so it's getting late. Let's turn off the lights, go to sleep. And they go to bed, and one of them pops up, turns on a light and says, "What about beer?" And he was like, "What about beer? You're right. Like, has anyone in our industry started their own beer?" And no, I don't think so. I mean, action sports people, surfers, skaters, BMXers, even though we are athletes, beer is heavily flowing in the industry.
So that's how it started.
So he called me.
They didn't know anything about that.
Not a clue. So they called me on their way home, and they said, "Hey, Paul, with Josh." They told me the whole story. Like, "We have this idea. You want to meet with us? Let's talk about it." Okay. So I meet with them. They're my friends. I know these guys. Like, "We have this idea, big idea. Like, we want to start a beer brand." I'm like, "Okay. I like beer. Fine." and then we go and we start trying to do the research. How do you make a beer brand? What do you do? And like in the skateboard world, you find a manufacturer, they make the wood, you just have them make the boards for you. They put the screen, you just provide them with the graphics, they'll print out whatever you want, send you the boards, pay them. So we thought that's how we found a brewer, contract brewer, and they made all the beer. We were just going to make cans, put our logo and market our label. We found out, nope, no margins in that, no money in that. We tried to visit different breweries, everything we could. And my friend Josh quit his job. He stopped being a surf filmmaker. He moved down to San Diego from Ventura, and Mikey and myself invested money each to basically fund him quitting his job and only doing this every day. And he turned from a filmmaker who knew nothing about beer into a genius in beer like that.
So he focused the way you focus in skateboarding on beer.
And that's actually the only way I gauged on how to work with people. That's actually a point I missed out when we started Primitive, when my friend Andy kept talking to me about this. And I kept saying, no, I'm not ready. Finally, when I gave in, what made me realize is like, he's so passionate about this. He feels the way about this that I feel about skateboarding. And I know how I feel about skateboarding. And I know how it worked out. oh, this has got to work out then. If he feels that way, you can't stop us. So that's how Josh ended up being. He became a genius. He moved his family to San Diego.
Took all these risks.
Took all these risks.
And did you believe it was going to work out?
I did.
Because of his passion.
I did.
And it did.
It did. And so what we found out at the end of the day, we found out like, man, if we want to make money in beer, we have to make our own brewery, because that's the only way you're going to get better margins. And we have to figure out, how do you get distribution? That's the name of the game in the alcohol world, is getting distribution, and it's hard to obtain. So we did another business plan, figured out what does it take to open up a brewery, blah, blah, blah. And we realized we're going to need about $2 million. We were like, damn, how are we going to get $2 million? And that's the first time I was involved in a capital raise.
So you've had like a parallel life, and you've learned all about entrepreneurship in this parallel tracks, and you were able to keep both. Which, listen, I say mission and money, and you have to have money at the same time. Mission doesn't always go with money.
No.
Sometimes it
especially
does,
in skateboarding.
and sometimes it doesn't.
No.
And so tell everybody what happened with the brewery.
So the brewery, long story short, we raised the money, and the way we did it, looking back now, it was genius, but we didn't know it was genius. What we did is we went all to our athlete friends, our surfer friends, skateboarder friends, snowboarder friends, who were all well known in our world, and we asked them if they wanted to invest. So all of them became ambassadors. Instead of us paying them to sponsor them, said, hey, invest. All of us have ownership, and we all have huge social media followings. We all have we all have big fan bases. We can invest in this, bet on ourselves, and market this thing through our lifestyle. And what we found in the beer world, they didn't understand marketing the way we understand coming from brands. All they thought was like giving coasters to local bars and putting up banners was their marketing, and the beer would sell itself. And in some cases, that's true. In our world, like, we made a catalog, we made a couple T-shirts, we made our different SKUs of beers, and we presented it to this distributor called Stone. And they thought we were like geniuses. We've never seen a catalog. It's like we invented what a catalog was. And they were like, we've never seen any company do this, anything. And they started distributing us, and we would just post social media, make really cool videos, content.
So how long did you guys keep the company?
We opened the doors in 2012 of the brewery in San Diego. And in 2015, Coors Light came and bought us out.
Wow, what a great story.
3 years later, Coors Light came out, bought us out, and I never knew about investing, and you have to re-up because we need to do another raise and dilution. And so when I found out about dilution, I was like, what? Like, we have to do another capital raise to just keep flowing. And I was like, I didn't want to lower my, I thought, I didn't.
You don't
so
want
if
to
they
lower
come
your
in,
ownership.
my percentage is going in. So every time, I just kept re-upping. I kept
put
reinvesting.
more money in.
More. So I became the second highest shareholder in the brand at that time. There was one guy who just was already really rich and crazy businessman. I couldn't keep up with him as far as the reinvesting. But I ended up becoming the second person out of all the investors, like the second highest paid on the payout, which for me was crazy. And it was just naive of just keep throwing money at it. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was just like, I don't know. It was.
So you've lived this very intense double life, and it's gone very well. And so now you're in a very different place in your life, and you're still in skateboarding. But how is it when you get to the point where you're saying, I'm at this place in my life, but I also now slowly have to do other things.
Sure.
Because you still have a Nike deal, you still have all these things, but you're older than you were, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
So as an athlete, luckily you were doing both things at the same time anyway, so it's not like a big shock to your system. But how do you see your life going forward the next 20 years? And you and I have talked a lot about also the fact that when everything comes to you so early in your life, and such blessings come early in your life, and then you're hit with lessons. Mm-hmm. And how do you then begin the second half of your life, both on a money note, but also catching up emotionally, because you almost missed a lot of your childhood?
100%. I did for sure. I don't have an exact play-by-play explanation on how to do that. I guess my approach has always been like, I'm in this moment, whatever this moment presents now, I'm just going to try to work through whatever that is and get through that and get through that. Next thing you know, after years and years of doing that, you look up and you realize, oh my gosh, look at everything that's happened, and it all worked itself out. I guess I've come to just, first of all, faith, rely on God. No matter what, it's somehow, some way, it's all going to be okay. All going to be okay. No matter what. Even when you think it's not okay, even if you're like, at the end of the day, I believe even when you die, it's all going to be okay, regardless. So this is a game. So to a certain level, you have to take the heaviness out of it and treat this life as a game. Don't treat it recklessly, but also don't put the utmost over the top importance, pressure on yourself, because at the end of the day, whether you're the so-called greatest, amazing, most accomplished person in the world, or you're the so-called worthless, most bum people in the world, it's all going to end regardless. It's all going to be done, and we got to go to whatever's next. So for me, I found comfort in that realization to a degree, to where I can freely operate without feeling like it's going to be the worst thing ever if it goes wrong.
So you've invested a lot in other businesses and in other drinks and other things. But going forward, what floats your boat in terms of, you've told me that you're interested in looking at real estate. You're
Love
looking
it,
at,
yeah.
but you are even kind of, it sounds to me like you really want to double down on this entrepreneur or the assets or the passive income.
For sure.
So talk about it.
So what I've realized is I'm not an entrepreneur. I am an investor.
Wow, see, that's a very good
What I've
thing
learned
to
about
realize.
myself, yeah.
Not
I'm not an
everyone
entrepreneur.
wants to be an operator.
No, I'm not an operator. I want to do what I want to do, when I want to do, how I want to do. I don't want to be on the phone. I don't want to be answering emails. I don't want to be having meetings with finance guys and credit lines and this. Don't care about that at all. Obviously, I know it's necessary, but I want to invest in the people who love to do that. I want to find those people
So you're like an
who
angel
get off on
investor.
that. Yes, I'd love to be an angel investor, but I think of those people as my angels that I can invest in. Because thank God you love to do it, because there's no way I would want to ever do that. So I would like to put more gas on your fire. That's the way I look at it. So I want to be an investor. And
it sounds like you're still smelling and looking for your next big passion, which could come
for
any
sure,
moment.
for sure.
Because then you'll deep dive again.
But
into
that's
that.
why I want passive income, so I have the freedom to find my passion. If I want to go, to a Buddhist monastery and spend 6 months meditating, I want to be able to do that if that's my passion.
That's right.
And not have to care or
Well,
whatever it is.
We've been lucky because I'm one of those people too that I have worked for other people at times, but for the most part in my life, I've worked for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when you're one of those people that is contrarian, when you work for other people, you're like, whatever. You should really work for yourself.
Once you've already experienced working for yourself, there's no going back.
There's no going back.
There's no going back.
It's very tough.
Yeah.
But I want to know, because I know you have a lot to say to like a young person. Like I know you've said it to your brother Lucas. What do you think? What have you learned, both good and bad? Like, what would you say is important to find that road that fulfills your mission and your money? What are the most important things you've learned? Because you can say follow your dreams, and the money will come, but that's not true.
Not
for
true.
everyone.
No, it's not true. Because
It's not true for everyone.
Yeah.
And it's also, we have to be careful when we say that in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're a girl in Afghanistan and you want to be the greatest singer in the world, and maybe you are, maybe no one will ever hear you in a massive way.
Yeah, I can't speak from other people's circumstances. I was born in fortunate circumstances. I happened to be born geographically where my dream happened to be. So a lot of things were already in line.
Aligned.
But I also do not know a lot of people who were born in so-called aligned circumstances and never did nothing, blew it all. So for me, what I've learned is it comes down to your attitude, how you see something, how you frame up your circumstances in your mind, how you see it. I'm in a good position, let me take advantage. Or I'm in a bad position, so I'm screwed and can never get out of it. then you just condemned yourself by thinking of that way. I'd like to think if I was born in whatever you might label as bad conditions, that I would have had still this mentality that would have dreamed my way out of it. Where am I going with this? What would I tell somebody, their money and their mission? I actually don't know what I would say. I would just say, like, find whatever you feel like you're in alignment with. And if money is something you desire as well, I mean, everybody desires money, but like, you have to really want it as well. And I don't mean taking it or stealing it from nobody. That's not the way to live your life. Because having money, you want to be happy too. You want to be able to go to bed at night with a good conscience. Otherwise, having all the money in the world but feeling terrible about yourself, you're living in hell. I'm going on a tangent. Sorry.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I see that you may not.
Yeah.
The things I've seen that you have. First of all, you have worked in a very highly disciplined, monastic, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, and have created mastery around specific things. So you have to talk about the discipline of sticking to something.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing that I can't take credit for is like I said earlier, it didn't feel like discipline. It was an urge. It was a calling. I had to do it. If I didn't do it, I felt sad. I felt depressed. I felt lost. Because I am very late. If I'm not interested, I am lazy. If I don't want to do it, ask me to answer an email. It's not happening. If I don't want to do it, I will not do it. But if I want to do it, I will do it and outdo whoever in it because I just have to in it. I get off on it. I have to do it. So I would say that's where you start. You find that thing that you feel like you have to do. You have to do it, whatever it is. It doesn't matter if you love making hot dogs. We all know the place, Nathan's Hot Dogs. It's a huge hot dog stand. I'm sure the original Nathan made a great living off it and killed it. The guy just loved grilling hot dogs.
Well, I also think
and he went with it.
You have made a big deal out of attracting, or you could say attracting or finding or learning or just wanting to learn things and attracting a team.
Sure.
It's impossible to do everything yourself.
100%.
Even now, with your skateboarding life, you've created a team.
Yeah.
And literally a team of kids that skate and also a team
of
that
business
handles
people.
all that.
Yeah.
So there's part of what you've done that is a singular athletic thing, but it is not alone. You're surrounded.
That's what I've learned about a team is if you want a real successful team, nobody needs to step on anybody's toes. You're put in that position to do the best at that position. And your teammate who's in the other position that complements your position needs to just be the best at that position. And if everyone just stays in their lane and is the best at who they are in that position, when you guys combine your powers doing that, you can't be stopped. So like I never try to act like I know more than like, my lawyer or my CEO. Like I may have a different opinion, but if they explain it to me in a certain way, I hear you. Okay. Well, you're the expert in that field. I don't quite understand it yet, but I know that you're great at what you do. So, okay, let's give it a shot. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes you're wrong. But at least if we all can come together, make a decision, I think making a quick, concise decision is better than making no decision at all, because at least if you make a decision and it's not the right decision, you can at least know that, okay, well, we can fix this. Let's do something else real quick. Don't get stuck in like analysis paralysis or whatever that's called. You know what I mean? And I don't know.
So you have been both a successful athlete and a money maker. And so we want to inspire other people to do it.
Yeah.
So what are you open to the universe for? What's next? I mean, obviously you're still doing what you're doing, but
right.
Are you open to a whole new inspiration?
100%.
And then how about for someone like you that has lived so much so early, what's left to do and what is left to learn in your personal life? Because I think that's what we've all of us that have achieved early.
Right. The learning never stops.
You don't figure all out at once in life.
Never.
Right?
The learning
so if
never
one
stops.
part of your life is really, it's worked out.
Then the other part is really not worked out.
That's
Yeah.
right. And people need to know that.
Yeah.
We're all a little out of balance.
Yeah.
Because you can't, that whole thing about being even in everything, just it doesn't usually happen.
Look, jack of all trades, that type of thing, but
Right.
you're a master of none, and that's just the sacrifice you make. Like, I think I'm sensing what you're referring to. Like, I've made so much progress in one area, but in my love life, it's been a lot of failed businesses. Should we
You're gonna
call
get a lot
them?
of calls after this, I'll tell you that.
A lot of failed businesses in my love life, but
Well, we know that that's what happens when we over hyper focus on one thing, then we have to work on the other.
Yeah.
But you're still very young,
okay, yeah,
and you're very
I'll take that.
successful.
Doing
and
well.
and now we have to. It's like me going back to school so I could become congruent.
Uh-huh.
And I had to almost stop working for a while so that I could grow up finally.
Yeah, but
and-
see, you
and
had
mature.
the matureness to understand that that's what you had to do.
I did.
And you had the financial freedom
That's
to
right.
make that choice.
That's right. And I want people to hear that it's not that money makes you happy,
No,
but money gives you the freedom to make really good decisions.
100%.
And that's why it's important.
But it also gives you the freedom to make terrible decisions.
If you can.
Money, I think, can accentuate what you already. It like puts a magnifying glass on how your brain already works. If you're already dysfunctional and somehow you come into money, you're just going to get on a fast track to more dysfunction.
Right.
If you're already healthy and centered and well balanced internally and you get money, it's just going to accentuate
Right,
that
so
in a
that's why
better
you
way.
have so many athletes that have money and then they blow it all and they buy things that are depreciating and all that. And I think for me that I've never, as you know, I've never been grandiose. Money for me is freedom to make choices and make better
Absolutely.
decisions.
Yeah.
But I am so proud of you
Thank you, Nely.
to have known you since you're 8 years old, and I look forward to many, many, many more years and beautiful,
Thank you.
beautiful businesses, and also beautiful in every way. 'Cause you are,
Thank
you
you,
are
Nell.
very zen and very,
I try to be.
very old soulish, as is my son.
Yes,
that's
he
why you're
is.
both brothers, and you're both a gift in my life. So
Well, thank you.
so much.
And you've been a gift in ours, and we appreciate and love you.
Moneymaker is a production of Money News Network. Moneymaker is written and hosted by me, Nely Galan. Our executive producer is Morgan Lavoie. Thanks for listening. See you next time.